And she told me something that really, I was shocked. Last year, GE launched 5 new design products for their appliances divisions. They have 48,000 team members participating in those projects. Out of those 48,000 people working on those projects, they produce 7,400 new GE designs and concepts. None of them were a GE employee. Not a single person. So that changes the game. That changes your approach. Because if you think that you can do it alone, if you assume that you have the expertise, the knowledge, the understanding, you're wrong. You're dead wrong. It's not going to work anymore. We live in a connected world. So you cannot just buy trust. You need to build it. And in order to build it, you need that diversity. You need people that understand each other, that can bring that different perspective on everything that we do. And also, as an executive, we need to start embracing the failure, the chance of failure, because failure is an option. We are moving from that culture that was so afraid of failing, just because we needed to be certain about everything that we did. Right now, we have organizations that are asking people from around the world on how to do better, and embracing that as a way to become the organization that really understand their customers and their needs. The last part is about innovation. And how do you innovate? By being open. Fostering human connections is really important. If your organization is not connected, it's not connecting the knowledge, the talent, the expertise of their own people, they're not going to be able to innovate. And they need to connect that talent with the rest of the world. Look at Cisco, what they have done right now, another technology company. Sorry about that, but I'm the technology guy. They have done it. They're working with their customers, not for their customers anymore. They are creating new models of engagement. When was the last time that you saw a Coca-Cola ad that really sold Coca-Cola? They're selling experiences. They're selling passion. They're selling engagement. And organizations need to understand that in order to survive this new wave of competition, they're going to have to do better. As I said, just to close, there's not a single organization that doesn't want to be a leader, that doesn't want to do well. There's not a single executive that doesn't want to excel at their job. But they need to embrace these new ways of working, these new ways of connecting. They need to embrace the diversity of the people that works for them and the diversity of their communities in order to build trust, in order to learn, and more important, in order to succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Javier. And last but not least, we have Abhishek Khosla, and he's a grade 12 IB student from Leston B High School.
Well, those were definitely some exciting points with my fellow panelists brought in front of us. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us today on this wonderful Wednesday morning. First things first, my name is Abhishek Khosla. I'm in grade 12 and I go to Lester B. Pearson High School. And today I'll be more than pleased to share my input of the ROI of having an inclusive, multicultural workplace. And feel free to interrupt me and ask me to slow down because I'm slightly nervous. So let's get right to it. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, the world is getting smaller. As new technologies, social media, transportation, telecommunication, and the e-world bring us closer to each other every day. It is all the more critical than ever for for organizations to recruit, develop, and retain multicultural leaders and workforce who can skillfully navigate both opportunities and challenges of this more connected world, right? Audiences, I know most of you may come from fields where you might have noticed that there's a wealth of skilled and talented people who are not effectively engaged in the Canadian workforce. Any guesses who these people are? The immigrant workforce, the Canadian-born visible minorities, and the youth. The youth who have been overlooked in the past. Either their talents have been wasted by not employing or underemploying what the qualified candidates are. Allow me to share this with you. This is an article posted in the Multicultural Advantage website by John Greenberg of the Alpha Measure Inc. in Colorado. He notes that multiculturalism allows all workers to contribute based on their own background experience and qualifications. When variety of viewpoints are thrown into the problem-solving mix, new and innovative solutions can be reached. And I'm sure you would agree with him on that. An employee with disability is more keenly aware of the needs of the other in the disability community and can act as an excellent source for identification of relevant goods and services for both the community members and the potential employees. Similarly, employees from diverse ethnic or linguistic groups backgrounds are better able to serve people from their own community, as well as increase language and cultural capacity of your own organization. And to support my argument, I would like to use the example of the Toronto Dominion Bank. If you've ever noticed in any of the TD locations, they have a lot of multicultural employees. Why is that so? Because they are smart, up to date with the society bank, and they know by having employees who are of the same race and background, they can attract more customers who are immigrants. They make their customers feel welcomed and accepted, and this hospitality can mean a lot to someone who's new to the country. And hospitality is what made them the #1 ranked financial institution for newcomers to Canada. How impressive is that? Just by overcoming the language barrier, they're able to attract so many more customers. And also, I read in one of the TD locations that TD donates about $8.6 million to community events and programs across Canada. All of that put together makes them the highest in customer satisfaction amongst the big 5 retail banks. Ladies and gentlemen, one thing I would like you to understand is that multicultural leadership involves deep immersions within different cultures and understand their values in specific contexts. Recently, you might have just heard that McDonald's introduced their new signature Asian crispy shrimp McWrap. Wait, why would they do that? What are they going to what are they trying to get out of this? What is the world's #1 fast food joint trying to get out of this? McDonald's aims to target the immensely huge Asian population, which I'm sure will be a success story for them. But the point is, who gave them the idea of coming up with a product like this? Most likely somebody from the Asian descent suggested them to coming up with a product to get the Asian population on their side. Maybe, ladies and gentlemen, who knows? What if somebody from a diverse culture has the golden key for your company to be the next McDonald's, the next Google, or the next Apple Inc.? Because that's exactly what all these companies are doing. They're hiring more and more diverse employees, and that is what puts them on the top. And you know who the best employees are to have? Are us, the youth. Young people. Thank you. Young people like me who are in the early stages of their career offer great value compared to some mature and senior employees in certain cases. Youth bring new ideas and skill from post-secondary training, their adaptability to change and their comfort with technology. And not only that, they're also experienced with diversity. All of them are usually at lower than average salary cost. Now, allow me to introduce you to this last scenario that I have, which my dad told me about. So one of his friends went for a job interview, and he was asked this really interesting question. And the question went something like this. So what has working in a multicultural workplace in your past jobs affected you in terms of what are some new things that you have learned as a person? And he very wisely answered it by saying that he has learned new traits from people from the different cultural backgrounds and races. He went on and said how he has learned to respect people more from my father, a person from the Indian descent. Not only that, some collective cultures have a strong collaboration and wanting to be a part of the group, which I'm sure you would agree can be really helpful in certain projects. Not only that, other cultures can also teach you maybe how to deal with stress better or how to be more efficient. Isn't that amazing? A sharing of all these excellent traits in your workplace can make your workplace the ideal place to work at. Just imagine how much you will grow as a company. And above all that, imagine how much you and your employees will grow as individuals, which to me is just fascinating to even think about. All of this is possible only if you take your chance on the immigrant work pool. In the last minute discussion with my dad last night, he pointed out to me, you know what? It's not very easy to measure the ROI based off a multicultural workplace on a single metric. However, we can only learn from the success stories in front of us. And I couldn't agree more on him about that. It makes complete logical sense to hire and retain a multicultural workforce as if it reflect on increased sales, better market penetration, and have a business adaptable to the current ever-changing global economy. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Excellent audience.
Thank you, Abhishek. I love your passion and your drive, and I hope that, as we grow older, that we don't lose that part of ourselves. So thank you for reminding us of what it takes to be passionate about something that we care about. So let me ask the panelists first, and feel free to, jump in, whoever's ready. The first question is, what are our biggest blind spots in the context of an inclusive, multicultural workplace? What that means is, as an employer, what are we not aware of that's getting in the way of our ability to hire, retain, and promote the best talent from diverse cultural communities?
I'm going to be saying this from a personal experience.
Can you stand?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sorry. So the biggest blind spot that I see from my personal experience is that we have that assumptions that somebody who's an immigrant, they're not experienced enough, they don't know what they're doing, and not only that, but their knowledge and the credentials that they have are not easily transferable. So that's one thing, and not only that, but the biggest, and this assumption is what's the biggest roadblock to hiring or attracting or supporting any of the immigrants that their knowledge or their credentials cannot be transferred to our society.
Great, thank you.
I will say that the biggest blind spot is that we try to hide our level of comfort. I think we need to be comfortable being uncomfortable with this situation. As an organization, we need to embrace that and deal with it, right? So I think, to me, that's the biggest challenge that we have, the biggest blind spot.
I think often when we hire, we look at people like us. We tend to hire like us. And many of the women my age and maybe a little above remember very well how hard it was first to break through. And I think it's the same thing. They used to hire, and still do in many occasions, men as leaders, men as seen as leaders. And it's the same thing. How can we see immigrants as value employees, as innovators, as leaders in our own community? So I think this is some of our big blind spots that we have.
And to build on what Jamie has said, so we're still in 2014 having a conversation publicly about women in the boardroom. That is a conversation that should have been put to rest in 1977 when the movement was about feminism. From the perspective of diversity, and let's think about it, organizational culture. When you declare that one of your values is honesty, everybody, regardless where we come from, understands the word honesty. What may not be clear is the expectation of how that translates within the corporate culture. So, from the very simple of having a welcoming website that states your intention of welcoming us as foreign trained professional, let's think how we integrate culturally. And it's not about time, being on time. What do your corporate values mean? And I think that is a big blind spot.
Great. Thanks for that. And if I can just add to that as well, a big blind spot for us is unconscious bias. right? So we talked about the bias that we experience ourselves, and actually we have our own biases. And I think that if we can start with the assumption that every one of us has a bias, and the bias has been built over time since the time that we're born, then it becomes easier to talk about it. And through the neuroscience research, we also know that it's really hard to unlearn some of the pathways in our brains that have been hardwired. But it's very easy to create new pathways. So in fact, it is possible to teach an old dog new tricks, right? You just have to be conscious about it, and you have to keep trying and trying to change the behavior. It may take 10 times, it may take 20 times or 100 times, but with consistent behavioral change, it will become a habit. And I think that our challenge today is to say, what are the biases that I have, be aware about it, and then be conscious about making that change to turn from a bad bias to positive behavior into a habit. So I just wanted to throw that out there. The second question I have for the panelists is, how do you define success in an organization? So when it comes to embracing an inclusive multicultural workforce. And also we talked about the R.O.I today. So how do we measure success in an organization? How do we know that we've made it?
I'll kick it off. So taking the HR lens, first and foremost, retention and promotability. We're talking about multiculturalism as a tool to attract talent. But those of us that live within an HR environment, attracting is the bare bones beginning of success. Because all you can end up doing, and I've known many organizations that unwittingly ended up in that space, is actually train and develop a very competent workforce for your competitor. So if we look as a measure of success, it's not about